Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Patreon podcast. This week, I wanted to talk about the idea and kind of just a phrase I've been thinking about in general lately is 1 mile per day. And while that sounds slow, that also means that you can move deliberately. And I think that's really the point that I wanted to make here. And I've been thinking about this a lot, especially with the new year coming up. And I'm just trying to figure out how I want to plan my year. But I also want to plan it deliberately. I want to make sure that what I do when I move into this year is something that I am intentionally doing. I'm not just flailing around and hoping that, what I decide to do is successful. I want to make sure that I'm setting myself up for success. And, that's not easy to do, but it's also important to recognize that, some days you just have to put in the work. And I've been having a lot of conversations with friends lately and people on stream, and just the idea that, a lot of the important parts of becoming popular and famous and making a living on the internet aren't necessarily glamorous. So it's kind of a roundabout way of putting it, but it's one of those things where it's like, if I want to get into sample libraries, if I want to work with stock music sites and stuff like that, I just have to put in the legwork. I have to find the right sites. I have to set up the right tags. I have to do all of this stuff that is it's not fun. And it's not like entertaining, and it's not anything. It's just work. It's the legwork, and doing that even a little bit at a time, like 1 mile per day, that can get you there. I mean, even just looking at the 2-hour track challenge and the fact that I was doing one song a week for 6 years now or more, and it's just that's very slow pace can get you there. And I feel that it's a much healthier way to get you there than trying to sprint and trying to get there all in one go, because it's so easy to be impatient. And I'm very impatient. I apologize for the bloops in the background if you can hear those. I've got my work laptop running, but don't tell my boss. But yeah, it's so easy to be impatient, and I am a very impatient person. I want things to happen right away, and I want results right away. And if I don't get them right away, then I'm feeling like I'm failing, because I tried submitting music to like Pond5 and a couple other stock library sites, and I wasn't getting much traction. So I just decided it was a bad idea and moved on. And I feel like I could have put a lot more effort into that. And that's one of my goals in 2022, is to take the existing library that I have, seeing as I've released like 700 songs or whatever, and try to find a place for a fraction of those songs online, and getting those songs recognized by other like YouTube platforms or radio stations or films. Like, having those available opens a lot of doors, but if I don't put in the legwork to upload them properly and tag them properly and name them properly and give them descriptions and all of this other super boring legwork, nobody's ever going to notice that they exist. And if they don't exist, then, I'm not going to be able to make any sort of passive income off of them. Which is really my whole goal. My whole goal is to survive based off of the work that I've done in the past, so I have time to make work now, so I can survive in the future by the work I've made off in the past. So it's kind of the long game in that regard, where I just want to keep making things so I can sustain myself, so I can make more things. And I think I'm getting there. It's kind of a rocky process, and I don't know if it'll ever be like 100% stable, but that's not necessarily the point. Like, the point for me is to have, like, this is basically my retirement plan, where once all the bills are paid off and once all of the, like, I have a 401k and all that other stuff, like, maybe I can retire a few years early and I can coast off of my retirement funds far longer, because I have this passive income stream that pays for the majority of my bills from day to day. And that's like a super like validating feeling that what I'm doing now is going to enable me to have a less stressful life. And, all of this comes back to that 1 mile per day thing where it's just like, no, you're not moving fast, but you are moving mountains. And that's important and that's valuable. And I think that like that mindset is really, really hard to come by, because it's so easy to feel like if you're not getting results right away, you're not doing it right and it's not worth the time. And that's obviously not the case. But being patient and building that that rapport is so hard. So I'm still kind of learning it. And honestly, like one of my big things next year to try is to write a few ebooks. Like I wanted to do like how to write a song in 2 hours, maybe do how to write an album in a month, and like have a book full of creative advice. And I was thinking about calling it 1 mile per day because like it's like one of the most important tenets to keep in mind when you are creating stuff, especially if you're going for the long game. It's like you're not here to sprint to the finish. You're here to continue moving forward, even if it's at a slow pace. That's fine. And yesterday was I called it in my journal, I called it a meat and potatoes day, because it was one of those days where I got a lot of things done, but it was very boring and not worth talking about. Like I like itemized a bunch of YouTube stuff. I uploaded some videos. I rendered stuff out. I like did nothing that was fun. But it was important. Like it got a bunch of videos scheduled up on YouTube. So I have content going out over the next month. I'm planning, some sample packs. I'm planning like all of this other stuff. And I just want to make sure that these meat and potatoes days, they still are important, even if they're not exciting. And that's kind of where it starts to feel like this creative stuff is just a day job. And that's not a bad thing, because if it's just a day job, hopefully at some point it will replace your actual day job. And, at least in that case, you have more agency over doing what you love, rather than spending your time fulfilling somebody else's goals. And I think that that's really important, because, at the end of the day, like it's important to do what you want to do and what you'd love to do. And, I do love my day job, but I would love working for myself more. And, I'll get there at some point. But I feel that having that little paradigm shift for me to focus more on kind of the standard day-to-day stuff is going to help quite a bit in that regard, because I got really impatient this year. And this year, I mean, the last 2 years, let's be fair, have been really, really tough. And just kind of staying afloat and even moving forward in any degree is a wild success for me. And I feel that retaining that momentum, even though I had some pretty awful months this year with mental health, I feel like retaining that momentum and continuing to move forward is going to be a huge boon for me over the next year. And while I'm planning next year, I'm trying to figure out what exactly I'm going to do through it. I imagine that I'm going to have an episode that will go up at the end of the year dedicated to, my plans for 2022, because I feel that that's important as well, which I think is actually that Friday is the 31st. Maybe it's not. Sorry, I'm just looking now. Yeah, so December 31st is a Friday, so I'll be having that episode right on the right day. But yeah, like I want to make sure that I have a proper plan, but that plan is just a series of guideposts. It's not going to be exactly what I do. It's just going to be, what I want to do. And those will probably change as the months progress. So I guess it's kind of a preview for that, but I really kind of wanted to just talk about my mindset moving into the next year, because it is very important. And my mindset is to move slowly, deliberately, and understand that sometimes you just have to have a meat and potatoes day where the work is super boring. and that's okay too. I might have another episode talking about kind of the business side of things, because I think that there's a lot of interesting kind of thoughts that I have for that, but I have to I need to sit down and I need to like hammer that out a little bit more before I talk about it. So that might be a future episode, maybe next week, or maybe early 2022. We'll see. So thank you guys all so much for being a Patreon supporter. I genuinely do appreciate it. And thank you so much for listening. I hope that you have a wonderful Friday and a fantastic weekend, and I will talk to you in the next one. Be remarkable.